Welcome to Education in Time of War. My name is Rachel Raz, and today with me is Erez Kaganovitz. Erez is joining us from Tel Aviv. He is the creator and the founder of Humans of Tel Aviv, that over the years also grew and became Humans of Israel, and another project, Human of the Holocaust, and most recently, Humans of October 7. And I had the opportunity and honor to host Erez in the Boston area recently. And we had about 5 events in the community with the students at JCDS, Jewish Community Day School, 8th graders and their teachers, and at Temple Emuna, a conservative synagogue, also with high school students and the wider community, at BU Boston University as part of the language department. In particular, the Hebrew department, we met with 2 groups of students. And at Temple Israel, there was a collaboration of young adults from several organizations such as Moshe House, the Israeli American Council, EDGE, and Riverway. So I'm delighted, Erez, to have you today and for our participants to learn more about some of your project, their impact, and also how the war in Israel actually impacted some of your work. So welcome, Erez. And please share with us a little bit about, let's start with Humans of Tel Aviv. We're going to later on talk about the other projects.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for organizing and being my host for the visit in Boston. It was a real privilege, and it was really interesting, to meet the Boston Jewish community, and we're probably going to speak about that visit as we go forward in this conversation. But I would like to start with give you a little bit of a background about the Humans of Tel Aviv. Ever since I was a kid, I was, mesmerized by different cultures and different languages. And I remember that I told myself that when I will have enough time and enough money, I would probably hop on the first jet plane and I will go and travel and see the world. And this is exactly what I did. I've been to the States and I've been to Europe and I've been to India 5 times. And the thing is that most of the people don't realize that I'm coming from Israel. And that is probably because of my accent, which I acquired after watching endless episodes of Seinfeld and Friends. And when I'm starting in a conversation, people will always ask you, where are you coming from? And when I told people that I'm coming from Israel, Rachel, you could actually see how their facial expressions start to change. And then you had a lot of questions. You're coming from Israel. Isn't it a place where you're actually at perpetual war with your neighbors? Or isn't it a place where it's always about the conflict? And I was really angry that people had this misconceptions about the place I was coming from. And I remembered that I told myself that if I had the ability to actually take those people back with me to Israel, and Tel Aviv, so they can see in their own eyes what Tel Aviv and Israel is all about, I don't know, maybe, just maybe I would be able to change those misconceptions. And actually what I wanted to show was to show the diversity and the multiculturalism and the vibrant civil society that we have in Israel. And what I'm doing in Humans of Tel Aviv is that I'm walking in the streets of Tel Aviv and I'm engaging total strangers. And I start to have a conversation with each person, each human that I'm meeting. And I'm taking a short quotation from their story, from their life story. And then I share it on social media. And so far, I've captured more than 2,000 life stories of different Israelis from all walks of life. And it's not only about, speaking about diversity and multiculturalism. When you actually see the project as a whole, you totally understand what I'm speaking about. And this is exactly my aim. And this is exactly what I've been doing in the last few years with all of my projects.
And this was also inspired, if I remember correctly, by Humans of New York, isn't it?
Exactly. And 2012, I stumbled upon Humans of New York, and it was like an eureka moment for me because I said, well, this is interesting. And I remember that I opened a Google search page and I wrote Humans of Tel Aviv, and because I wanted to do the project. And before I hit the search button to see if somebody already understood the potential of creating a project like this, I promised myself one thing. I'm not the Prime Minister's office. I'm not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm not the Ministry of Tourism. I'm going to show reality the way that I see it. And I'm going to show the good parts as well as the bad parts. And I'm going to let other people connect the dots for themselves. Because I think that when you show the reality, the complexity, of living in Israel, people will appreciate that, and people will actually understand what is the vibe and what are the challenges living in a place like Israel.
So maybe you can share with us some examples from this project.
Yeah, for sure.
I myself grew up in Israel, in Tel Aviv, so I resonate with it. I always actually try to share also Israel and where I came from with other people. Now that I live in the US, I try to do the same, telling them about life in Massachusetts, where I live, which is not living in different places, you meet different people. So what is this picture?
So one of the things that people don't get about Israel and Tel Aviv is that, I had the privilege of working in the Israeli parliament. I was a spokesperson for several members of Knesset. And one of the most moving sessions that I remember from parliament was in the education committee. And the title of that session was, "How can we make a safer environment in schools for transgenders?" Now, it was really moving, and it was, people were crying, and it was really, really moving to see that conversation in the Knesset, in the parliament. And there is no way that this kind of a conversation will be held in a parliament in Cairo or in Amman or in Beirut or in Damascus or in Tehran, for that matter. And people don't really understand how open the Israeli society is for the LGBTQ community. There's a lot of things that we should improve and we should change, and we should have full equality. But when you compare it to other places in the Middle East, Israel is a haven for the LGBTQ community. So I'm always trying to show the diversity alongside the complexity of living in a place like Israel.
So take us to this day. Where was this picture taken?
This picture was taken in one of the gay pride parade in Tel Aviv. Now, I think it was before Corona, at the peak of the gay pride parade in Tel Aviv. Around June, every year around June, there are approximately 300,000, 400,000 people from Israel and from all around the world who are coming to celebrate a gay pride parade. And it's amazing. It's like it's really, really interesting, and for a photographer, it's a great opportunity to take great pictures and great stories.
And if I remember correctly, in one of the articles that I read, that Israel is ranked one of the 10, Tel Aviv is ranked one of the 10 best city for LGBTQ community.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Mainly in Tel Aviv, mainly in
Yeah,
Tel Aviv.
yeah,
When you're getting outside of Tel Aviv, things are a little bit different. But I can totally say that if you're a part of the LGBTQ community, Tel Aviv is the place for you. Not
yeah,
only in Israel, but in the Middle East. It's
absolutely. So what do you have another photo for us?
Yeah, of course. This is one of my favorite pictures. I took, I think, countless pictures of Tel Aviv in Israel. And usually people are asking me, if you can choose only one picture that will tell the DNA or will tell the story that you have in Israel or in Tel Aviv. And I always go to this picture. I took this picture in the beach of Mantare. It's one of the most prestigious seashore in Tel Aviv. In the back of this picture, there is a very high-end restaurant. If your viewers are coming to Tel Aviv and they want to have like a really good brunch, so Monterey restaurant is the place. And for me, this picture tells the story that in Tel Aviv and in Israel, you can dress the way that you want and nobody will make a fuss about it. You can go to the beach, wearing a hijab or niqab or a burqa, and you can wear a bikini, and that's fine. And that's okay. And I think this picture actually, tells a lot about the DNA that we have in Israel. And I remember that I took this picture around the time when you had the terrorist attacks in France. If you remember the Charlie Hebdo, Bataclan.
Yeah,
And during that time, the French government actually had this law, had this decree saying that women are not allowed to wear burkini when they're going to the French Riviera. And I remember that I was amazed because we're speaking about France, and France is the cradle of modern democracy. And they decided to have this ban, and they never had to face the same security threats that Israel is facing from day one. So if we're going back to this picture in Tel Aviv, nobody ever contemplated, nobody ever thought of banning niqab, hijab, burqa, or any other garment, for that matter. And that actually, says a lot about the Israeli society and about our democracy and about our values in living in Israel.
Yeah, and if we stop sharing for a second, I can share with our audience, if they're not familiar with Israel, so Israel has about 10 million people living in Israel, a little bit less than that. About 73% of Israelis are Jewish, about 21% are Arab. They divide between Muslims and Christians, and we saw like the three women, the Muslim women in the beach in Tel Aviv, and about 5.7% that we called other, that and can be Armenian, Cherkess, Vietnamese, or people from different faith that marry within Jewish faith. So Israel is very diverse if we're talking about a population of religion. In a little bit, I know that you have another picture for us talking about even within Judaism, some of the diversity, so I won't jump there. And maybe you can share with us the next picture that you prepared for us,
But
Erez.
it's not only about, speaking about diversity, because when you getting to Tel Aviv, Tel Aviv is a very small city. You will walk from Jaffa port, which is the south part, to the north port, which is actually, the Tel Aviv port. It will take you around, let's say, an hour and a half. But every 10 minutes, there will be a different language and there will be some kind of a different vibe. And you can actually feel that diversity. It's not only about, speaking about diversity, it's actually, living it and actually seeing that. And that is what actually, that is what makes Tel Aviv such a special place.
And it's interesting,
And
Eric, that you mentioned that several years ago, I'm an educator and I went to Italy, to the Reggio Emilia region. They're very well known for their school. And at that year, they were talking about diversity and they did a big project. They call it the Piazza. They took the kids to the center because this is where they heard the languages. This is where they saw the diversity of people. So by living in it, you don't need to talk about diversity, you live diversity. So
it's funny that you're mentioning this because I was born and raised in Haifa, which is one of the most sane places in Israel. I really love Haifa, but it's not that diverse as Tel Aviv. And I remember that on the first week that I actually moved to Tel Aviv, I was living near Rothschild Boulevard. And on the first week, I was just amazed. I was sitting on a bench in Rothschild Boulevard, drinking my coffee. And it felt like there's some kind of an extra agency that was closed. And they told people, just walk in the streets. And I was just, gazing around and just seeing people. And I told myself, wow, this is amazing. This is like, first of all, this is not Haifa, and which I really love. But second of all, this is diversity. This is interesting. This is different.
yeah. Yeah.
And if we're speaking about diversity and being different, I think you will probably love this picture. This one. Now, you don't have to be this amazing photographer to actually, take this picture. You just need to know your surroundings. And this is the entrance of Shankin Street, just from when you're turning right from Rothschild Boulevard. And it was summer. And summer in Tel Aviv, in Israel, it's around 35 Celsius. I don't know how much in Fahrenheit, but probably around 100, 110, something like that. And humidity is around 95%, so it's really, really hot. And I knew it was Friday, so I realized probably, maybe some people will go to the beach. And I knew that just around the corner there's a big congregation of the ultra-Orthodox. And I just waited that something will happen. And when I saw the girls, behind me, and I saw the ultra-Orthodox guy walking to my direction, I just waited that they will be, on the same line, and I took the picture. And it's actually, in a way, it's clashes of cultures. But in Tel Aviv, you can have that clash. And if you're seeing something that you don't like, just turn your head to the other side of the road and just keep walking, and everything is okay. I wouldn't say that, those girls can walk like this in Mea Shearim, in Jerusalem or in Bnei Brak, for that matter, which is an ultra-Orthodox city in the center of Israel. But in Tel Aviv, you can actually see this, clashes of cultures, and it's interesting and it's fascinating. And by the way, if we're speaking about, culture, and we're speaking about art, and we're speaking about photography, I remember that I presented this picture in Ohio. I think it was one of the public schools, and I think it was fifth or sixth graders, and one of the kids actually stood up and asked me, what is Abraham Lincoln is doing in Tel Aviv? And I was like,
Yeah,
but
for
that's
people, for somebody that never met an Orthodox Jew, and I have to say that, for example, I'm living in America. Jews are about 2% of the population. And if you talk about observant Jews that dress the way this guy on the left dressed, they're even, the percentage is even lower. So the chances that somebody ever met a Jew that dressed like this, or observant Jew, is very, very small. So through your picture, they get to learn about it. And that's the beauty of this project, that it's bringing the world and the diversity of Israel or Judaism to this audiences, wherever you go. And I would like to also add to it, we spoke about 73% of Israelis are Jewish. So it's not just divided by Orthodox or secular. There's also Jews that came from different countries. For example, my family came from Egypt and Turkey and Libya. And so like our food, my grandparents spoke Arabic at home and other grandmothers spoke Italian at home. So it's very, very diverse.
And I think this is the great thing about, Tel Aviv and Israel. It's not Israel, when it was actually, founded, David Ben-Gurion thought about the melting pot, but it was a melting pot that there was supposed to be only one secular or one form of the new Jew. But actually today, it's a melting pot, but every person can have their own interpretation and their own values. And I think this is what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
And one more thing about this picture is that this is what I love about photography, because I took this picture in the Middle East and I presented it 10,000 miles from Tel Aviv. And the kid, in Ohio, actually saw the picture, and he has his own connotation, and he has his own cultural background, and he thought about Lincoln. And so this is the power of photography.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important, this project that you started, because most people don't have the opportunity to walk in these streets and see it. And if you close this, I also, as you know, I have children books that I created because I also wanted to share Israel with audiences. And like one of the things, talking about diversity and the community, it's like I took a picture of street sign that it's with the three languages, through English and Arabic. But I wanted even young children from Israel to understand that there are different languages. If they go they're driving around the Boston area here, it's only in English. When you driving to the north, closer to Canada, you might see some French. But to understand that this is a diverse community, even by street signs. So Erez, do you have another one that you want to show us from this category, or do you want us to move to the next
I
project?
think I have one more picture, but let me see where, if I would like to share it. This story, for instance, we're speaking about Tel Aviv. That Tel Aviv is such it's, sometimes we call it, Sin City, and when you're living in Tel Aviv and in Israel. And I'm always trying to get the stories of people that I meet in the street. And when I met Miri, she's a modern Orthodox, and she told me that for her, it's really, really hard to live in Tel Aviv, because for her, Tel Aviv is a little bit like Sin City. It's really hard to find kosher restaurants in Tel Aviv. I don't know if you know this, but you have much more sushi bars in Tel Aviv that actually, kosher restaurants. She told me about how hard it is for her to observe Shabbat when she's in Tel Aviv, like if you compare it to Jerusalem. And when she told me about her life experience, And I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. How do I actually compose the pictures? We were in the streets, and I'm always looking around to see what is the best composition to have the picture, because I realized that, it's not enough that you have a good picture, and it's not enough that you have a good story. You need to have some kind of a combination between the picture and the story, so they will actually, resonate one another. And when people are actually, scrolling down their feed, they will stop, double click, and it will be something engaging. And when I saw that poster on the bus stop, I said, well, the colors are actually matching because of the Bible, which is actually pink, and you have in the background the flowers and the model, and the differences between the model and between the ultra-Orthodox lady. And this is actually, differences that you can see in Tel Aviv. And I asked Miri to join me, and we took this picture. And I think it's about storytelling. It's about how you can actually tell a story through pictures and through text, and actually to have a combination so people would want to engage with that. And this is the great power of photography, in my eyes.
Yeah, thanks, Erez. And over the years, as we know, things are evolved. Their needs, their interests, and I know that you started the project of Humans of the Holocaust. Can you share what made you think about it or start it? What intrigued you to do that?
I never, ever, ever thought that I will ever create a project that actually deals with the stories of Holocaust survivors. But in 2016, I stumbled upon, even before that, in 2016, I actually uploaded the picture that showed, why am I even speaking? I can actually show the picture.
Absolutely.
Will be much better. This picture. And in 2016, I uploaded this picture to my Facebook page, to Humans of Tel Aviv, and it went viral. And I got a lot of messages from people from all around the world that actually asked me, why are those young people actually tattooed a barcode on their wrists? And I was really amazed that people didn't have the knowledge about the Holocaust and about, it's only 80 years ago. And there was a lot of conversation on the page, and people were actually, were through the conversation, were better informed and better educated about the Holocaust and about Jewish history. And I never thought that I will ever do a project called Humans of the Holocaust. But this project, this picture actually showed me that I have the ability to better inform and to better educate people about the Holocaust and about Jewish history. And it was, I never thought that I will ever do something about it. But in 2019, I stumbled upon a survey that actually showed that 66% of young millennials in the States never heard about Auschwitz, and that 50% of those young millennials could not even name one concentration camp or a ghetto. And I was amazed by those numbers. But that was only one part of the problem. The other part of the problem was the fact that there was this rise in anti-Semitism starting in 2019. And that is actually, a lethal combination, because if you're ignorant of what are the consequences of blind hatred and anti-Semitism, there will be a rise in anti-Semitic attacks. So I was really angry of those young millennials. And as much as I thought about it, I realized that when I was their age, I didn't want to have any connection to the Holocaust whatsoever. Now, Rachel, you got to realize my background. I'm Jewish. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. I grew up in Israel, which actually means I was hammered with Holocaust education. But still, during Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah, I would never, ever turn on the TV. I didn't want to see the dead bodies. I didn't want to hear about the atrocities. I never, ever went to Poland for those educational trips to the death camps. And as much as I thought about it, I realized that if I, with all of my background, didn't want to have any connection to the Holocaust, why would, let's say, somebody from Lexington, Kentucky would want to engage with that? And then I realized that we have to change the way that we're actually addressing this issue. We have to speak about the Holocaust, and we have to speak about the atrocities. but we also have to tell the story of Holocaust survivors in a different way. It has to be much more engaging. It has to be optimistic. It has to be full of life. Because today, when kids are scrolling down their feed, they have like 3 seconds before they're deciding if they want to watch that video or want to read that post or want to see that picture. So you have to create something that will be meaningful, and you have to create something that will actually ignite a great spark of curiosity at those viewers. And I would love to hear your thoughts about this picture.
So couple of things before this picture, about the children that you mentioned, even if you can go back to the one with the numbers, the tattoo on their hands, it's not that many of these young adults don't want to learn about the Holocaust, but I would put the obligation on the education system. Are we teaching it? What are we teaching to bring as part of the curriculum? Because there are many things that are not being taught at school. So this is another issue. What are we choosing to teach and why? What kind of citizen we are raising? In this particular one, I remember that you shared with us. So this is the number. Actually, my neighbor in Tel Aviv had the number because he was Auschwitz survivor and he had his barcode on his hand. And in this case, you mentioned that the grandchildren decided to put it so they can continue to tell the story, especially with lots of.
The great thing about this picture is that actually, the grandkids decided to reclaim that symbol that turned their grandfather and the Jewish people into subhumans, turn it upside down on its head, and actually, tattooing it from their own free will as something that they're proud of being Jewish. And if you can see, there's a tiny diamond and near the number because their last name was Diamond, and Diamond in German is actually diamond. And the story behind this picture is that Arik, which is actually the grandkid of Yosef Diamond, who was the Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz, he came to his grandfather with this crazy idea of tattooing his Auschwitz number on his wrist because as a way to commemorate his memory. And his grandfather, in the start, he was taken aback, and he asked his grandkid Arik, why are you actually thinking about doing this? You want to take the symbol that turned me into a subhuman and actually from your own free will to tattoo it on your wrist? And they had a conversation and they decided that they will think about it. And after 2 weeks, Arik came back to his grandfather, and the first thing that his grandfather actually told him was, when your grandkid will see this tattoo, would you tell him about me? Would you tell him about the Holocaust? Would you tell him about our family history? And that was the moment when he actually, Arik decided to have this tattoo. So I think that there's a lot of power in this picture. But I've got to tell you that this picture, actually, there's a lot of conversation also in Israel about, because people, for myself, I really think this is a beautiful and this is really meaningful pictures. But you have people in Israel, people who are religious, who probably will say that according to halakha, religious law, you're not allowed to have any tattoos on your body. And then you have a lot of conversation about it. If this is a proper way or not a proper way, but in my eyes, this is beautiful.
And you prepared one more picture for us from this collection of Humans of the Holocaust. And I think you mentioned that you interviewed about 50 Holocaust survivors.
In Humans of the Holocaust, so far, I've captured around 50 Holocaust survivor stories. And it's a much more complicated project than, of course, Humans of Tel Aviv. Humans of Tel Aviv or Humans of Israel, you're walking in the streets and you're engaging total strangers. But Humans of the Holocaust, there's a lot of research and there's a lot of preparing. And you got to remember that Holocaust survivors are not young. It's really hard, it's actually challenging. But I feel privileged that I had the ability to capture so far 50 pictures and stories. And what I'm trying to do in Humans of the Holocaust, as I mentioned, is to create some kind of a picture that will make people want to engage with the story behind it. And when I spoke with Dougal Leitner, a Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz, and the first thing that he told me while we were speaking on the phone was that the only thing that actually kept him going while he was in Auschwitz was his sense of humor. We both realized that we have to create something different that will actually resonate his story. And Dugo is not only, holding the balloon in the shape of the notorious yellow badge the Jews were forced to wear during the Holocaust. He's actually embracing that balloon. He's reclaiming that symbol. And this is not a picture you would probably, think about or imagine when you're thinking about the Holocaust. This is a proud Jew. This is somebody who is proud of his heritage. This is somebody who actually, survived and is happy and is thrilled. And one of the messages that Dugu has, for people all around the world is that no matter what is actually going on right now in your life, if I managed to survive Auschwitz, you would probably survive any challenges that you're facing right now in your day-to-day life. And this is a message that you don't have to be Jewish in order to engage with that. Now, if we want to fight anti-Semitism, in my eyes, we have to get outside of the Jewish community. We have to reach out to the places where you actually have anti-Semitism, because it's great, to have the conversation in the Jewish community. But if we want to fight anti-Semitism, we have to go outside of our community.
And not just to fight anti-Semitism, but as I mentioned earlier, for people to get to know more about us, to know what are the Jewish values, what is the Jewish traditions. And the moment that you know what we stand for, what we're bringing to the world, the values that we bring, I hope that, people, choose to be friends. And like I would say, the majority in our population we live together. I can tell you that in America, like we live together, we work together, we invite each other. If you think about like interfaith marriage in the Jewish community, it's about 60%. It means that they're very much feel very comfortable within the society here. It's just this specific group that are very vocal and are aggressive in that aspect that we need to see how to stand up for them, not just against Jew, but against the American values, the free world values in democratic societies. So it's more general. So Erez, I know, and Dugo, by the way, I met him about a year ago, just before he passed, and
He has passed away almost a year ago.
and I'm so glad that you managed to capture his story and share it and tell it. I know that you also you mentioned sharing it with the different people. Tell me about some maybe recent like, exhibit that you had in some places that were highlight for you. Because as creator, I'm also a creator. We do things because we think that it's right or we want to do it, but there are also some moments for us that we sit and say like, wow, we created this or we created this opportunity.
So one of the things that I was really proud of is that last year in Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, I actually presented the exhibition at the German embassy in Israel, and it was really moving. It was, as you spoke about, we're doing our project and it takes so much effort and takes so much time, to actually to get to those moments where you actually, you can feel that you made something really, really special. And it was really special because 5 Holocaust survivors that I captured for the project and the exhibition actually came. And it was so moving to see how they felt and how they felt that, to be at the German embassy in Israel as Holocaust survivors, to be commemorated, to feel that they are appreciated. It was really moving. It was one of those moments you feel that all the things that I had to do for getting to this moment was actually worth it. To see their faces, to see their how emotional they were, how emotional their family were. It was really, really, really moving, and I'm really proud that I had the ability and the privilege to actually to give them, that honor.
Yeah,
And just a few months ago, on the International Memorial Day of the Holocaust, we're going to speak about Humans of October 7 later, but one of the humans that I've captured for Humans of October 7 was Chaim Ra'anan, a Holocaust survivor from Kibbutz Be'eri, who actually also survived the October 7 massacre. And yeah, exactly. It's
awful.
one of the things that I told myself in Humans of October 7 after capturing stories of Holocaust survivors is that how much pain and anguish can one person can actually have in one lifetime. And when I captured stories of Holocaust survivors who also survived the October 7 massacre, that was heartbreaking. It was so hard to internalize and so hard to understand. But in this picture, you can see Chaim Ra'anan is holding the picture of his mother and him when he was a kid in Budapest, and they were wearing the yellow star. And Chaim told me that he never thought that he will ever need to run and hide for his life because he was Jewish. And on the International Memorial Day of the Holocaust, just a few months ago, on the 27th of October, I had the privilege of presenting the Humans of the Holocaust exhibition at the residence of the European delegation ambassador, the EU delegation to Israel. And Chaim actually was the keynote speaker at that event. And it was so moving. And Chaim was actually, he addressed the ambassadors. There were ambassadors from all across Europe and from all across the world. And he actually addressed those ambassadors and told them, listen, when I was a kid, there were Star of Davids actually printed on my house and on my communities 80 years ago. 80 years today, we could actually see that, those stars of David, because of October 7, are already, being printed once again on Jewish houses around Europe. And he actually asked them to do whatever they can in order to actually to tackle this surge in anti-Semitism. And it was one of those moments when you actually, people actually listen, and people actually, there was silent, in the room, and everybody it was moving. It was moving. It was important, and I'm really happy that he had the chance to actually, to speak from his heart and to address those ambassadors.
Yeah, and again, the project that you create through these photos, that they bring it, they created opportunities are so special. And what is this picture?
This is the picture of all the ambassadors and Chaim Ra'anan and two other Holocaust survivors who also actually, came to the event. And it was moving, and it was important to commemorate the memory of the Holocaust. And we have to fight anti-Semitism. We have to do it through legislation. We have to do it through education. I think that the first step is actually to address this issue through education, especially when students are young, because that's a good age to actually, to better inform and to better educate them, so there will be better citizens and better humans in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Erez. And I know that in some way this is like your most recent project. Unfortunately, it's Humans of October 7. And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, on October 7th, 2023, it's when Hamas terrorists attack the borders of Israel and murder about 1,200 people, took hostages, and wounded many other. They tried to take over the country. And as we speak today, it's almost 6 months. The war is still going on. So many people are suffering. And we have 134 hostages still in captivity. This war, unfortunately, also expanded to the border in Lebanon, and also we had some rockets from Yemen and some other places. But so tell us a little bit, Erez, from your point of view, as the photojournalist, as the person that started all of this project, about this project and about your day, what it looked like, what led you to do it.
So actually, the Humans of October 7 project, unfortunately, on October 7, I was in Haifa, visiting my family. It was Saturday morning, and around 7 o'clock in the morning, my kid actually came to me and told me, listen, Dad, there are rockets. We're flying to Tel Aviv. And as a person who actually, living in Tel Aviv, living in Israel, you're not so, okay, it's rockets. Probably it's, it's they're going to be like two or 3 days, fighting with Hamas, and probably will, it's more of the same. But it was not the same. It was mind-blowing. And I remember that during that day, as the news started to come, and we realized that this is a very different ballgame. And the thing was that I remember that I was, scrolling down my feed on Twitter, on X, and I started to see all what is actually, happening in the South. And as an Israeli, it's actually shattered the feeling of being an Israeli, because when you're living in Israel, you grow up with the feeling that no matter what is actually going to happen, the IDF will be there to protect you, and the government will do everything in her power to actually to protect you. But on October 7, it didn't happen. And something in the ethos of being Israeli, was actually shattered to a million pieces that day. And when you think about it, the state of Israel was actually established as to be a place to be a safe haven for Jews from all around the world after the Holocaust. And October 7 was the most deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. And people are speaking about post-trauma. We're not in post-trauma. We're actually in the process of being in a trauma. I remember that I just, landed, in the States, and I was in Miami, and I was getting to get my Uber, and suddenly I saw this pickup truck, a white pickup truck, who was actually the same as the terrorists used in Gaza when they actually, invaded Israel. And for a moment, I felt that, I'm not in the States, and it threw me back to October 7. So we are all still living that trauma. And as a photojournalist, I went to Kibbutz Be'eri, which is actually 3 kilometers from the border. It was one of the communities that was hit the hardest during that day. Around 100 people were either killed or kidnapped to Gaza. We're speaking about from a population of around approximately 1,100. So almost 10% of the kibbutz, of the community, were hit, died or abducted during that day. Actually, murdered that day. And a month and a half later, I took my camera as a photojournalist, and I went to Kibbutz Be'eri because I wanted to capture what actually happened in Kibbutz Be'eri. And as a photojournalist, you're actually, you come into a place and you always think about composition, and you think about lighting, and you think about how you can actually, capture the best picture that you can. And this is exactly what I did during my visit in Be'eri. But the thing was that only when I came back home, the camera actually was like a shield. It actually protected me from what I saw during that day. But only when I came back to Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv is, by the way, is actually an hour and a half drive from Be'eri. It actually hit me that, this could have been my family. This could have been my friends. This could have been my community. And I realized that I just visited a place of carnage. And I've took pictures all around the world, and I saw things that most people, most of the people never saw in their life, and I hope they will never see in their life. But there was something about taking these pictures in Israel that actually shattered me. It was hard. It took me around a week to actually, to regroup and to internalize what I just saw. And it was horrific. It was hard. It was, but still, I think it was important, to go there and to capture the pictures and to create the Humans of October 7 project. And one of the pictures that I took during this project is a picture of Chaim Yalin that you can see over here. Chaim Yalin is one of the most famous faces of the Gaza enclave, of the community who are living there. And I took this picture. You know something? I would like to ask you something. When you are seeing this picture, if you can give, a caption to this picture, what caption would you give?
Because of the flower, I'm looking at some hope, but it can be also flower that you put on a grave, because flower, we use them in many ways, but all of the burns around, there's sunlight in his face. I hope to see hope, but it's still very raw with all of the destruction. It's not just like burning, because I also know that many of the people were tortured, and the devastation and the pain that's going into it. I have many people that know firsthand some of the people that were slaughtered that day. But there's definitely the flowers that are making something a little bit different to this composition.
It's interesting how people actually, what are their reactions when they're seeing this picture. And some of the people are speaking about grief and speak about, pain and anguish. And some of the people are speaking about the future and about rebirth and about hope. And when I was thinking about taking this picture, I was thinking about what is the story that I want to tell of Chaim Yalin. And after I spoke with him, and he told me about what happened in Kibbutz Be'eri and about the fact that he was in the safe room for almost 24 hours, holding the knob of the door so the terrorists wouldn't go inside. And that it took around 8 hours from 6, 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the IDF soldiers actually came and the language was changed from Arabic to Hebrew. And he started to think that there is a chance he will be able to survive this. And he spoke about the bravery of the emergency team in Be'eri and about what happened in Be'eri and about the fact that he felt that this was actually a second Holocaust outside of his house. But he also spoke about rebirth and spoke about hope and spoke about resilience and spoke about the fact that he would love to come back to Be'eri. And this is the message of Humans of October 7. I'm trying to commemorate and I'm trying to bring the stories of hope and resilience of people who actually, show their true faces and actually, show their true DNA during that day. And the stories are mind-blowing. And I concentrate on civilians, on people who are not security forces and people who are not from the IDF or from the police, people who woke up in the morning and they had this terrorist attack on their head and they decided to go out and to save other people's life. And that is amazing. And if we are speaking about somebody like that, the story of Rami Davidian is amazing. Rami is a farmer from Mushav Patish. It's actually 10 minutes drive from Reim, from Kibbutz Reim, where you had the Supernova rave party. And on that morning, he actually got into his car and drove to the party. And the thing was that he actually got locations from people from all across Israel that actually, texted him to save people. And he went inside and outside for almost, 24 hours, 48 hours. He didn't have any helmets. He didn't have any weapon. Didn't have any bulletproof vests. And he saved around 700 people during that day. And he didn't have to do that. He could have stayed, at home, protecting his family, but he decided to do so. And that's amazing. That is something which is that is a story to tell. That is something that we have to commemorate. That is something that we have to actually to cherish. And this is exactly the stories that I'm showing in Humans of October 7th.
I said people step up and did what they thought was the right thing to do, even risking their life to do that. And many people did give their life while trying to save other people, unfortunately.
One of the things that I learned during this project is that, it's amazing how people are actually, are behaving, under pressure. It was amazing, to see how they are actually, decided to risk their own lives, and instead of being with their families and protect their families, they decided to go out and to save as many people as they can.
Yeah, and it's so good that you're capturing it, because I already hear people that says, no, this didn't really happen. People are exaggerating. It's unbelievable. Like there is like videos, there are pictures. So the fact that you are interviewing these people, sharing it, and then coming and sharing it, like I remember when you shared it with students here, you're the person that spoke to them. You took their picture in their home. It's very, very unfortunately, that we need it to prove to people that something like this happened. It's unfortunate in this reality. Do you have other pictures that you want to share from this project, or other I call them heroes, everyone with their
I
own
have one picture that I think that will be, really, really interesting. It's this story of Hamid Abu Ar'ar. He was born in Gaza, and he met Fatma, and they got married, an Arab Israeli. And on the morning of October 7th, Fatma was driving him and their kid, their baby. They were driving Hamid to his work in the Gaza enclave. And 8 Hamas terrorists, came with their motorcycle and actually sprayed with their Kalashnikovs their car. And Fatma was killed, was murdered. His baby was also hit. And luckily enough, he managed to survive, and his kid managed to survive, and he got his baby out of the car. And he was, getting out of the car and was trying to hide after the terrorists went away. And he saw this electric cabin on the junction. And he just ran to that cabin and opened the doors and was hiding there for almost 7 to 8 hours. And the craziest thing was that the terrorists came back to the junction 8 hours later, and they were hiding behind that cabin, electric cabin, where he was actually, hiding. And after half an hour, he actually saw an IDF soldiers who are approaching that junction. And he heard the terrorists actually speaking in Arabic. Okay, let's wait that they will move. The soldiers will come forward 10 meters, 15 meters, and then they wanted to get outside and to actually, to murder them all. And Hamid actually decided, that moment, in a snap moment, he decided to get out of the cabin and actually, ran to the soldiers, and he actually rescued them. He rescued himself, his kid, and the whole IDF soldiers that was there. And that's amazing. And Hamid is actually speaking about the fact that those terrorists, they don't really know what Islam is all about. It's not the Islam that he believes in. Thus, the terrorist actually knows who they killed. They killed his wife, Fatma, a devoted Muslim wearing a hijab, who's studying the Quran. Just as, just to show, the craziness of living in a place like Israel.
Yeah, and it's the extremists that don't want to live in peace and don't want to live, I wouldn't even say like with our values, but even pluralistic values, the fact that, to live and coexist and respect, taking back to the picture that you had on the beach with the three women wearing the way that they're wearing, the Arab with the head covering, and the other one with the bikini, a society that we can live together. Like I feel also very lucky, to live in America where this can happen. You can have a head covering and you can wear whatever you want, and we can still live in the same society. You can send your kids to a private school and learn about your own religion and do whatever you want. And it's unfortunately those fundamentalists that they are not looking to bring this kind of ideas to the world. This is what we're dealing with, which is unfortunate. So Erez, I want to thank you for all of this. I want to ask you, you were supposed to come to Boston in November, and of course, because of the war, it was postponed, and you recently came here. It was your first time coming to the US, in particular with this project of Human of October 7. Did you feel was it a different kind of visit? What was your experience?
It was totally different. I visited the States many times with my projects, and this time it was different for me as an Israeli to come to the States. First of all, because it was the first time I left Israel after October 7th, and you coming from a war zone and you're coming to America, and it feels like two different worlds. And it was really, really challenging and different and meaningful in a way that, first of all, I can say that my engagement, with the Jewish community. Here in Israel, we hear about what's going on in the States and we hear about anti-Semitism, but we're not actually dealing with that because we're living in a Jewish state. And this surge of anti-Semitism that actually American Jewry is facing right now, it's frightening. And I visited many Jewish communities, and it really depends where you're actually, in the States, but you hear people who are actually genuine are afraid. They're afraid to send their kids to school. They're afraid from the consequences. They're afraid to go in the street, with a yarmulke. They're afraid to have a necklace with the Star of David. I even had people who told me that they're actually, have thinking about Plan B, if not staying in the States. And I've got to tell you that, for me as an Israeli during October 7th, during that month, I felt that as an Israeli and as a Jew, I don't really have any safe place on earth. Not in Israel, not in Paris, not in London, not in New York, which is the most Jewish state in the world outside of Israel. I can tell you that in one of my speaking engagements in one of the campuses in upstate New York, the head of security actually came to me and told me, okay, before we're starting the speaking engagement, we have to make, I've got to show you an escape route in case of protesters will actually come and interfere the speaking engagement. And in the beginning, I thought he was like joking with me. I didn't realize that he was actually serious. But this is just to show you the atmosphere that actually I felt while I was in the state in my last visit, and it's frightening. It's frightening.
And that's why I look at it as we need to make sure that things are safe for everybody, for people that want to choose life of living side by side together for these values. So when I see things around Europe, or I see all of these like protests of anti-Jews, anti-Israel around the United States, people don't understand that this is also, it's against some of our American values, European values, and we need to be together to make sure that it's not going to change our society. It's not just about Jews, but in general, the fact that we can live, dress the way we want to dress, we can practice which religion that we want to practice. And I have to say that I feel very thankful that I'm living in a community that I have lots of people from different religion and different background, and they all ask about my family and me, and I feel comfortable, I have to say, but we need to make sure that it's going to be like this in every place.
You can have a conversation about what's going on in the Middle East. You can criticize Israel. You can criticize the government in Israel. This is okay. You can do that. But you cannot allow that, to actually, to slide into anti-Semitism. There's no way that, people, students, Jewish students will actually fear to go in campuses. That
Yeah.
Jews will fear to go to walk in the streets of the states because of their religion and because of their identity. That's crazy.
Yeah, and we need more. There's in the Boston area, there is a trail. It's called the Freedom Trail, and part of it is the Holocaust Memorial, and they have this beautiful saying. First they came for the communists, but I wasn't one of them, so I didn't stand up. And then they came and when they came to me, there was no one there. And I think that's why it doesn't need to be. It's not a Jewish problem; it's a society problem, and we all need to stand up and do it together.
They usually
So
say that anti-Semitism, when it starts like surging, it's like the canary in the tunnel. That's
yeah.
the first sign that something really, really bad is going to happen to the whole of the society, because it's not there isn't really any tolerance to other minorities.
Yeah.
And this
So,
is something that the United States will have to tackle. They will have to address
yeah.
this.
Yeah. And I hope that a project like you, a project like this one, the podcast of listening to different voices will reach to lots of people so they can hear our voices, they can learn from that, and hopefully it will help them think about what they're going to do about this in the future. I want to ask you a totally different question that actually one of the participants, the children, asked when you were here. I noticed that some of your pictures are more staged, like Dugo and the balloon, at Kibbutz Be'eri with the flowers. But then you have the pictures that you just took like on the beach or people are walking. And this is more like approach. So when do you decide to do this type of photography, which time another one? And a little bit about storytelling and this like art that you're engaged with.
Well, it really depends, the picture on the beach with the Muslim ladies. Just want to share it. So this picture, it was just, one of those Kodak moments when you walk in and you see a frame. I didn't really saw the girl with the bikini in the background, but I saw the composition of those Muslim ladies, and I just came and took the picture. And sometimes you have those Kodak moments, and as a photographer, you need to, when you actually when you're actually seeing those pictures and those stories, you just have to click it. And on the other side, because I was there, and usually my approach is that take the picture, and it's you this is about taking pictures, this is about capturing a moment. But sometimes you're not on that place. So in Be'eri, I wasn't there. I wasn't on October 7th during the horrific attack. But when I thought about the story that I want to tell about the October 7th, even technically wise, I knew that I'm coming to a place which actually is going to be black and white. Everything is burned. So I want to have some kind of a splash of a color that will actually, will bring light and hope to that picture. So I brought with me the roses. And it's also about the storytelling, when you have the ability to think about the picture and the story that you want to tell. So I decided to bring the roses and the pink and the white, because I wanted that the story, from my eyes, that the story will be about hope and resilience and looking forward into the future. And this is the reason why I created this picture, composition wise and colors. And it really depends. It really depends.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Erez. I personally, I love all of the project that you started. The fact that you're sharing through photojournalism stories about people, because it's not just, sometimes we hear numbers. There are about 10 million people there. There are 1,200 that were killed. There, when it's number, we don't really understand that they are human beings. There are stories. They have feelings. They have families. They have hopes. They have dreams. And I think to make it more personal, it's so important.
You have to.
Yeah, and I think that we are not doing enough of that in education, and I think it's the value of it is very important. So I want to really thank you for taking the initiative and founding this project and capturing those stories and now sharing it with the world through many different ways. Is there any hope for you for any of your project, or where you would like to show them, to which audiences, and in which capacity?
So, Humans of the Holocaust, I'm planning probably to present the exhibition at the German Parliament, at the Bundestag, next year. And I'm planning to have a book titled Humans of the Holocaust. So people will be able to actually to read the stories and to be better informed and educated. And Humans of October 7 is actually, I want to show the Israeli DNA. I want to show the Israeli resilience. And the exhibition of Humans of October 7 is going to be a traveling exhibition in 2024 across the states, in Jewish communities, in museums, in campuses around the states, because I think we have to tell the Israeli story. We have to. We just have to.
And Erez, before we conclude, maybe you can share with us your website so people can look it up, and if they're interested in reaching out to you, if they want to bring you as a speaker, or if they want to just browse through your website and see these photos and read some of the stories.
Yeah, of course. Just Google Humans of Tel Aviv, Humans of the Holocaust, Humans of October 7th, and you will get to my website. This is the Humans of Tel Aviv.
There are so
And
many
just from
stories.
here,
Yeah.
you can get to all the stories of all the other projects.
Thank you very much, Erez. Yeah, and I highly recommend to all of our viewer listeners to go and explore these pages, and also have Erez. Erez, I want to thank you for joining us, sharing with us all of this inspiring project, and thank you for bringing those stories to all of us. And I look forward to seeing what other stories you're going to capture in the future. So thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It was my privilege. Thanks a lot.
Excellent.